Welcome to Kier's Kingdom Connection, featuring
my dad, Reggie Key, and
my dad, Kier Hopkins Smith.
Here we go.
Oh, be careful. I just put some cocoa butter. It's going somebody get hit in the face because it's too slick.
Hold up. You see?
Right.
Oh, here it is, baby. Kier's
Kingdom Connection.
Kingdom Connection. One more again. So we didn't spit the wheel. We thought about possibly doing Deliverance Part 2, but both of us was like, let's spin the wheel and just see, where it brings us. We spent the wheel and we landed on
Black Boy Joy.
Yeah. Black Boy Joy, right? And
you got Black Girl Magic,
right?
But we gonna focus on Black Boy Joy,
right? Because that Black Girl Magic be having a lot to do with hair, and neither one of us got that, so we gotta have a joy. We gotta have a joy somewhere else, right?
Yes, sir.
But man, brother, listen. I'm grateful and I'm thankful, Reggie, for one, just being in the skin that I'm in, right? It's the skin that I'm in.
Mm-hmm.
But in the midst of me, as you talked about earlier, when you and I talked off camera, just coming into that place, I used to have like my own little personal issues, even with my skin. And it wasn't necessarily against somebody who wasn't black. It was actually the variances of the colors of black people that was messing with me.
Really?
Seriously. Because I saw some dark folk. I thought, my God, that complexion looks good.
Yeah.
I ain't got that. And then I seen what we call red bones back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, yo, light skin, something new. And I ain't got that.
Yeah.
Right? And it took I was probably in my later teenage years. This is pre-Jesus, where just the settling of the very skin that I'm in, that I could be okay with,
mm-hmm.
and accept it and say, wait, God, you put me in this, right?
Mm-hmm.
You allowed me to have this, and is there a joy that I can extract from that can be contagious to others?
Yeah. It can be difficult, I think, for our young men who see the environment that their fathers and uncles and relatives and other black men grow up in,
mm-hmm.
and we gotta have a slight scowl on our face. We gotta whether it's to create this persona, to perpetuate this persona, or because the world is just not complying with us being great. I have some concerns. We got to be specific because we want to talk about our sons and these two Josiahs. So Josiah the elder. No, your son is Josiah the elder. Mine is Josiah the younger.
Right.
So one of the things that I've talked to Josiah the younger about often is, hey, look, man, like when you go into a circumstance, when you go into a place, make sure that you have fun. Because if you don't have fun, the only person whose fault it is yours.
Right.
And I'm talking to him from a perspective of, I was that kid who was trying to be, because I didn't fit in a lot when I was younger. So then when I started figuring out how to fit in, I would just kind of be like, posted up, chill.
Right.
I can't smile.
Yeah.
And there's some things that I wouldn't allow myself to do because I couldn't control how I looked when I did them.
Okay.
And I see it in my son. I'm like, let loose. Like, I think they're having, like, both of our children, your daughter and my son are in band in some way, shape, or form. And I think they had a spirit week this week.
Okay.
And so they had these different themes. And I didn't really participate in spirit week when I was his age.
Oh, okay.
But I'm encouraging him, like, yo, do it though.
Yeah.
Like I was like, my parents never really knew what was going on and never really encouraged me. But I was like, bro, we can go out and get some of these.
Right.
They had like a sports themed shirt. I was like, dude, we can go get you a shirt.
Yeah.
Like, just make sure that you allow yourself to participate and have fun.
Yeah.
Like, let that joy come out no matter how it looks. Because if you looking foolish, guess what? You're not going to be the only one. That's the whole point of it.
Right.
And I want him to get comfortable enough with who he is that he doesn't care who's watching.
Yeah.
Because I mean, real talk, I carry this thing with me where I'm always feeling like somebody is. I always feel like
right, somebody's watching me, right?
And it takes me. It doesn't take me out of my zone. It keeps me in my zone.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I mean, I'm jogging today, and it's some people that are on the street that normally aren't. I think they were workers or whatever, and they were just in their truck. And it's a certain place where I get this anxiety that hits me right here because I'm like, they're watching me.
Yeah.
And whether they are or not,
Yeah.
why should it affect? I'm just out jogging.
Yeah.
So I don't want him to be bound by that. It took
you.
me a long time
I
to
got
get away from that. And I'm still learning to
Still
peel back.
peel those layers back.
Yeah.
And those layers, man, they're it's crazy because if we take a dissection into that, there are levels of those layers that have absolutely nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with you.
Mm-hmm.
There is stuff that we know, man, gets passed down to the generations that are thought processes and ideas and ideals that are passed down, whether directly or indirectly.
It's the unspoken stuff that gets
Unspoken, right? And it's, as you know, as being a man of God, the importance of having to speak to a thing.
Mm-hmm.
You got to be willing to speak to it. And just as you said, it's like, listen, there's an angst that kind of gets me right here, and I'm still working to peel that back. The fact that you're actually verbalizing it is actually bringing anything that could fester the darkness into the light, right? One of the things, man, that used to mess with me, coming into Christ, I grew up in what we call the traditional black church, right? And so coming into Christ, getting introduced to any church that wasn't a black church, bro, it was like, what is this?
Yeah.
It was mind blowing. I'm like, who sings these songs, right? And I'm like, we start praising God, and it get loud, it get good, folks be dancing, and then they get good, and they hum greater. And I was like, what just happened, right? And I'm like, okay. And so the Lord had to begin to actually begin to reveal greater things to me, because within that, I didn't recognize that I was starting to place my own prejudices against things in the body of Christ, right? And the Lord was like, you can't walk in what I have for you to walk in with these limitations on you, because then you will look and tell me who you can minister to.
Oh man. Yeah,
that was what the Lord gave me. You'll tell me who you can minister to and who you can't minister to, based off of your own prejudices. So the Lord had to set me completely free from that. And then within that, in ministry, is many times where, as you talked about, being watched, but I would be the only representative of anyone that was African American in a Christian setting doing like big events. I'd be the only one, and here I am representing, right? And even in that, the Lord was like, yeah, but your color issue is secondary to my kingdom advancement. And God had to keep putting that before me. Listen, you represent me first. Rest of that, it's temporary. You're born with it, you'll die, you ain't keeping it when you go. And God had to help me, so that gave me this peace that passes all understanding, right? So I can represent my king and still be cool with this, and be good and understand that, man, this is my complexion, and I am who God has made me, and I'm not limited by that. I'm actually more enhanced by it than I am limited by it.
Yeah, man, there's something coming to my mind right now. So we just had some neighbors move in recently, and I don't know if you've been noticing, when you come here to the house, there's a basketball goal outside now. It's the neighbors. All the kids come into the cul-de-sac. Now it's cool, but I have yet to go outside and shoot on this thing because I feel like people are waiting and expecting me to.
Oh man,
like you black people out here. He'll come out here and show us some things, and I'm limiting myself because of how I perceive others are perceiving me. Like, nope, I'm not going. I'm not going. Nope, I'm not going to fall. I'm not going to go into that. I need you to expand your horizons beyond what you think of me. Right. And I'm like, but I do like to shoot basketball. Though, so why am I denying myself?
Don't deny yourself
for the sake of somebody else.
Yeah.
So it's the little. I mean, we're talking about black boy joy, but I mean, there is that little black boy that's on the inside of me that's like, don't put me in a box though. Like what movie was that? It's like, don't put baby in a corner.
That was Dirty Dancing. That was Dirty Dancing. It's like, don't put baby in the corner. Don't put him in the corner. But and as you're talking about that, Reggie, this is, I think, the importance of that is because if you still have just even an ounce of that angst that's still in you, then obviously there's going to be a viewer who has an angst, right? Because and the crazy thing is that when we allow ourselves to be as transparent as we need to be, that very angst has no limitations based off of where you're from, because every person can have that angst, right?
For something.
And even if we look more specifically, even to our skin color, I had a roommate back in college that was the only white guy in the midst of a whole room full of black guys. Well, guess what? He had an angst in him because he's surrounded by black guys, and he comes from an all-white town where there was nobody of color in his town as he grew up. So guess what? He had an angst about him, right? And it took us to sit down with him. His name was Chuck, and we was like, Chuck, listen, man, you are a roommate. We love the heck out you, dude. Just be you. Don't attempt to be us. Just be you. But don't feel like you got to hold back. Just we got to learn each other. And it was interesting to see him go from when we first met him at the beginning of the semester to how he was at the end of the year, when we didn't force any limitations on him. We allowed him to just be who he was and for us to grow together, right? Yeah. And so I know that angst can happen with any person, but not worrying about, what a person thinks, because it was one of those wisdoms that my grandma said. She said, baby, grandma always giving them wisdom. She said, baby, you can't stop people from talking. She said, if you did everything right, they'd have something bad to say about you. Sure. And if you did everything bad, they still have something bad to say about you. She said, so whether you did everything right or did everything wrong, you can't stop people's mouths. Right. She said, so let's not worry about that factor, because that's a factor you can't control. She said, the one thing you can't control is you, right? And to be the beautiful person that God has made you. And it's even within this dynamic between you and I, it's the beautifulness of the very creation when God thought of Reginald Kier, and the beautifulness that he thought when he formed you in your mother's womb and allowed you got a height I'll never have. Always wanted it. Okay? I wish I was a little bit taller. You know what I'm saying?
Come on. Today. Wish I was a baller.
Yeah, come on. Wish I was a baller, But you have that, and I always wanted that. But I had to come to grips that 5'9" was as high as I'm getting. Yeah. I ain't hitting 6 foot. Just ain't happening, right? But there's a beautifulness of what God has given you. And for you to have that and to operate in that, because if any of us hold any of that back, then there is a level of this greatness and this beauty that somebody's not receiving from whatever we choose to hold back.
Sure. I know I'm cool with my height until I see somebody taller. And I'm like,
listen, you said, See, how's it up there in 6'8" land, 6'9" land, huh?
Yeah, it's that whole the grass is greener. And yeah, if you keep looking at the other side of the fence, yeah, it will rob you of your joy. We've been talking about in the men's group Tuesday nights, 8:30. We talked about the comparisons, right? We were just talking about it last week, and I gave you a shout out because I was talking about how we can be in a room full of men, praying, and when you get to praying, I'd be like, dog, going to Kier is going in, and it's eloquent, it's articulate, it's evoking the Spirit of God. I'm like, dude, I don't have that though. And if I'm not careful, I will then focus so much on your fruit that I'm not cultivating my own. And then I'm not contributing my fruit to the experience of, this prayer meeting that we had. Yeah. And so, that robs me of my joy. Yeah, instead, I get joyful, like, it was like, oh, Kier about to go in. Like, oh, there you go. He's in his element. I'm like, yeah, there he is. Listen to that.
Real talk.
Right? Yeah. And so, that's something that especially we have to evoke and put in our children at a young age, because I know from a very young age, this is one of the first things you and I probably talked about. I remember seeing another young black man that was doing positive things at my church and feeling intimidated by him and feeling like, oh man, instead of being drawn to him, like, what can we do together? Mm-hmm. I was like, nah, he kind of my competition now. And it kept me, it's like 16, it kept me from him. But then I had this moment of clarity where I saw myself and I'm like, that's not the way to be.
Mm-mm. Right.
And so I made some steps to try to draw closer to him and be like, he's uplifting the culture in a way, and I'm uplifting the culture in a way that we both win.
Yes.
I can enjoy seeing you win, And hopefully you enjoy seeing me win. Even if you don't, like I'm gonna go out here and I'm gonna win.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna be cool with it.
Yeah.
Right. And so, one of the other things that I want to make sure that I brought up as I think about our sons, I think about my son, is I see him in band and I see his confidence beginning to grow. And of course, I think confidence is a foundation for joy.
Yes. Yes.
And so I remember what caused me to become confident when I was his age. We're both introverts.
Okay.
We both would rather not talk. I'm a new creature in Christ now, so that's a whole other thing. I can't even do that anymore. But for a long time, my family was like, "Yeah, he doesn't talk much, does he?" And my parents were like, "Yeah, that's just who he is." And it took me getting my first job at 15 at this really popular clothing store.
Okay.
Up against the wall.
Okay.
It was specific to Maryland and DC, and it drew something out of me that was there the whole time.
Yeah, the whole time.
But I just had to get into an environment and kind of lose myself in the moment, and then because another thing too, if you don't talk, you don't get no commission.
Yeah.
Right. So I had to learn people. I had to be able to engage them and not come across like I'm pushing for a sale or whatever. Just engage people and get to know who they are. So I was, I remember thinking what is going to be my sons up against the wall? What's going to bring him outside of himself and it's band because I hear this confidence. It's swag really when he talks, and you've heard it too, not just from Josiah, but I'm sure your daughter Tamira, they have this confidence about their program. Where I hear him talk about another you play you in a band? Yeah, you're a band. Is mine. He says, as a matter of fact, I'm like, wow, really? Who is this? Who is this guy?
When you walking around with the championship here, the championship there, and you looking at them you ain't got no bling? Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so, I pulled him to the side for a second. I was like, hey, man, calm that down a little bit.
Just
your joy, right. Joy is one thing, but prideful is a whole other thing that we don't want to get into, especially, as black men. But I see it, though. That is his moment where he's becoming more confident, and it's drawn him out, and I see his joy exuding, and it's still here, but I see it increasing.
Yeah, I see it increasing. Right. And as we we wrap this up and we're looking at it, man, as we talked about even before, is the pitfalls of the confidence, right? It's the joy that has to stay in its purest form and obviously tethered to our God. Otherwise, when it's not pure and it's not tethered, it creeps into self-confidence. It creeps into pridefulness. It can creep into idolatry. Yeah. Right. It can creep into places, and we have to be careful of that. Stay circumspect. Have your joy, but keep it tethered. Yeah. Keep it rooted and grounded in the love of Christ. That way, as you grow with it, like you said, it's like, hey, I might be somewhere, you might not be somewhere, but my joy actually wants your joy to get where you meant to be. Yeah. I just want you to get where you meant to be. And what can I do with what I got to help you get there?
See, now you're talking about genius. Now you're talking about...
See, you start rubbing my man on that genius. Don't let him get started in them 3 circles and that dot right in the middle of them 3 circles, bro.
Yeah, don't let me do it. Don't let me do it. We should end here.
You said it right there, because we talk about them 3 circles. My God.
The whole workshop will bubble out.
The whole thing and just start yak. But that's the beauty of you. Regardless of if you have that introverted thing, that thing that blesses you to bless others with is going to immediately open the floodgates. And that is the essence of that black boy joy.
Hey. You landed that plane real well.
Bruh, come on, baby. Come on.
That was smooth.
You said all net, no rim. Come on.
Yeah.
My man. Kier's
Kingdom
Connection. Make sure I ain't done this, but subscribe. Manu Forte Ministries.
And power in
my testimony. Like us, subscribe, stay with us. We're gonna keep this rolling every week. Blessings.